from 289 class of youth cultural group. Have you heard about Toksugung? This is a palace where the last emperor of Joseon state. Toksugung Palace was occupied by major events in the modern history of Korea. Do you know Jungmyeonjeon Hall of Toksugung Palace, where the fate of the Korea Emperor was divided? Jungmyeonjeon Hall means a pavilion that never stops lightning around 1897 birth. Western style pavilion designed by Russian Savagin that housed modern culture. It contains King Gojong's will. His original name was Su-okon, but King Gojong lived here at 1904 due to a fire at Gyeonggung Palace, currently Toksugung Palace. As they moved on, they got the name Jungmyeonjeon. The Jungmyeonjeon force humiliating Japan-Korea theory of 1905 in the morning on November 18, but in 1905. It took away the thematic night of the Korean Emperor and established the Ministry of the Government. Japan mobilized its troops to invade Jungmyeonjeon and threatened King Gojong and his lieutenants. The ministry and home affairs to make it protectional country. Later, King Gojong signed a treaty of protection with the Korean Emperor in a struggle to restore sovereignty. Japan-Korea Treaty of 1905 and to the country's enemies with been sent letter to invade it. Lee Jun, Lee Sung-sol, and Lee Wi-jong will be dispatched as special envoys to the Second World Peace Conference in The Hague. Japan-Korea Treaty of 1905 informed the allegation made by force regardless of their will. Although Jungmyeonjeon has a shameful history, so that didn't happen to our dependents again. It is an impression cultural heritage that we have to teach and teach. Jungmyeonjeon's main mall goes up a little bit from the end of the stone wall road next to Toksugung Palace. It's behind Jungmyeonjeon Theater. This is the end of my story, and you cannot come here the Toksugung Palace because of the virus, but you should visit here.
Hello, this is Kim So-yoon from 289 class of Youth Culture Group. Now, I will talk about the Seogyeodang in Toksugung Palace. Now, this building is Seogyeodang. This building was used to place where one stayed for a while in the late Joseon dynasty. As you can see from the building, this is a two-story wooden building. And uniquely, Tancheong, a traditional Korean design color, is not painted. So this building would have been the most noticeable when it came to Toksugung Palace. Now that we've looked at the exterior of Seogyeodang, I'll talk about the two stories. First of all, the story is about the Japanese invasion of Korea in 1592. The Japanese invasion of Korea in 1592 when Japan invaded to Joseon. When Gyeongbokgung Palace became dangerous, King Sanjo took refuge. After that, King Sanjo came back to Gyeongbokgung Palace, but it was already burned down, so the king could not stay. It was here that King Seonjo stayed until the reconstruction of Gyeongbokgung Palace. That's why 서거당 name, it means that the king stayed. It is also a place where the Seonjos died. Now, let's move on to second story. Gwanghae-gun, the son of King Seonjo, made a lot of achievements, such as rebuilt Gyeongbokgung Palace. But he had a problem. The typical is killing his brother and deposed his stepmother King Dowager Immok. This place was used Dowager Immok stayed when she deposed. At 1623, King Injo ousted Gwanghae-gun from his throne. Then Gwanghae-gun is brought back to 서거당. And in front of 서거당, Gwanghae-gun heard his 36 sins to King Dowager Immok. So this place is historical place where Gwanghae-gun know his sins and reflected on himself.
Hello, I am Ji-Woo-byun and I'm from Youth Culture Corp, the organization introducing our Korean traditional heritage to foreign visitors. The topic that I will explain today is about the Jeongganon Hall, which is one of the buildings inside Deoksugung Palace. Before looking around the Jeongganon Hall, let me briefly tell you about the background of at the time Joseon Dynasty. At that time, the Empress Myeongseong, who was the wife of the King Gojong, was killed by Japanese in Gyeongbokgung Palace, like this picture. After Empress Myeongseong was killed in Gyeongbokgung Palace, King Gojong, who was 26th king of Joseon, he stayed at the Russian legation, looked like this. And later, he moved to this palace to escape the threat of assassination. Since then, this Deoksugung Palace became the palace of the Korean Empire, and also Western-style buildings such as this Jeongganon were built here. This is the picture of the Jeongganon Hall. When you look at the Jeongganon Hall, you can realize that this building is like a Western-style building because it has a Western-style roof, pillars, and handrails. As I said before, since the King Gojong stayed at the Russian legation and he enjoyed the Western-style life, he also made this building with Western style too. This building was built by the Russian architect called Sabatin. However, it has a Korean style elements too. This building is a compromise between East and West that harmonize pillars and handrails using traditional Korean patterns. The top of the column is a pattern of plum blossoms which symbolize the emperor. And also, there is a bat symbolizing fortune in both corners and handrails. Also, when you look at the handrails, there are deer and pine trees belonging to the zodiac in a circle round. There is another meaning in decorating the bat. The bat is an animal that produces the baby a lot, so it is meant to hope that the descendants of the royal family prosper and the Korean Empire continues for a long time. This is the picture of the inside 정관원 Hall. It doesn't look like a place for working, and also it doesn't look like a place for sleeping. Then how this building was used? This building was first built as a resting place for Emperor Gojong, but it also served King Taejo's portrait and performed a simple banquet for the royal court. It was sometimes used as a place to enshrine a king's portrait. But mainly, King Gojong enjoyed drinking coffee in this 정관원 Hall with the King Sunjong, who was the 27th king, the last king of Joseon dynasty. They also enjoy listening music in here too. King Gojong, as I said before, King Gojong stayed at the Russian legation and he could not forget the taste of delicious coffee, so he enjoyed drinking coffee in here. There is one story in here about coffee. Someone tried to poison King Gojong and King Sunjong by adding opium to their coffee. King Gojong didn't drink coffee because he noticed it tasted strange, but King Sunjong drank it because he didn't know the taste. Fortunately, King Sunjong escaped death, but it caused brain damage and caused him to have some mental disorder.